You're tuned in to Zoroverse.
Hi folks, and a very, very warm welcome to Zoroverse Season 2. We are really excited to bring forward to you the voices of the Zoroastrian youth. As mentioned in our introductory video of Season 2, this season will be focused on highlighting voices of youth from all over the world, in particular Zoroastrian youth that joined the Zoroastrian Return to Roots RTR 2023. Our first guest for Season 2 is Fravash Chothia. Fravash Chothia has been a driving force behind the active youth Zoroastrian community in Toronto, Canada. He has led the Zoroastrian Society of Ontario Youth Committee for over 4 years now and has learned a lot about keeping engaged, identifying important projects for the Zoroastrian community, and in short, taking the community to new heights. This was particularly important during a time of Zoroastrian diaspora towards Canada, where a lot of Zoroastrian youth from the subcontinent were moving towards North America. He is also a business graduate who is a strong advocate for entrepreneurship. One of the main parts of the podcast that Fravash touches on today will be on how to have an entrepreneurial, community-driven mindset to bring forth not only the voices of community members, but to work together as a team to watch the magic happen, in his own words. He not only works closely with his family on various construction projects, but also has his own spicy mayo, Fravi sauce. He has also recently started to help his sister Spenta selling her art to and taking that business to the next level. In short, he is an active, energetic, and important part of the Zoroastrian youth community worldwide, and is actively involved in advocating for entrepreneurship, community service, and to help bring out the best in those around him. The first part of episode 1 will be a short introduction to the Return to Roots trip and a recap of day 2. The core of our interview with Fravash will be understanding the key elements of what makes a community prosper and what brings the youth together. He gives his listeners very strong and constructive advice on how to bring your different communities from all over the world, whether Zoroastrian or any other community, together to engage in good work and to prosper. A theme that you will notice throughout Season 2 and the conclusion of the first episode will be the 72 questions. The number 72 is inspired by the 72 chapters of the Yasna, a primary ritual in the Zoroastrian tradition, and the 72 questions will vary from community service to personal interest in Zoroastrianism to political, social issues through the world, and will give our guests a unique opportunity to share in short form their ideas and thoughts on these questions. For now, I'll take up no more time and ask you to join Fravash and I in Mumbai, India for Season 2, Episode 1.
You're tuned in to Zoroverse.
Hi folks, and welcome to Zoroverse, a community-driven, youth-driven Zoroastrian podcast. Refounded in 2023, first founded in 2020. Today we have a very special guest with us on the show, Fravash Chothia. Fravash is based in Toronto, Canada, and is part of the ZSO, the Zoroastrian Society of Ontario, which he helped rebuild as a chair of the youth committee after being inspired by the LA Youth Congress in 2019. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Fravash.
Thank you, Meherwan. And I'm really happy we're restarting the podcast. You know, it's really nice to hear from all the Zoroastrians around the world, and a big shout out to the UK community for starting this project. And it's nice that we're restarting it. So thank you so much, Meherwan. And yes, he's a good friend of mine, and I really appreciate being the first guest.
It's a pleasure to have you as the first guest. Fravash and I met in the Congress this summer.
Yeah.
And Fravash did push for this the podcast to get restarted. And coincidentally, he's the first guest on the show since it got restarted. So we have a bit of a community cycle being developed already. Out of not coincidence, but out of choice, Fravash and I are here today in Mumbai, India for the Zoroastrian Return to Roots trip, the 7th one in the year 2023 in December. And I just wanted to start off with a quick recap of what we did in day 2 of the RTR trip. Fravash, could you give a quick introduction of what you imagine and think the RTR trip to be, and a quick recap of what we did in day 2 for our audience?
Yeah, so Return to Roots is a program that's been going on now. This is the 7th time it's happened. Basically, people from especially North America and other places around the world, they come to India and they really explore what the Zoroastrians have done after they left Iran and came to India. And there's especially a lot of Parsi influence in Mumbai. And here we have a really detailed tour of everything, like from the statues on the streets, from the Agyaris to even the Dungarwadi, which is the Tower of Silence here. And we're all a big group of Zoroastrians, and in this way we get many privileges to go into really prestigious areas. Like we were in the Tata headquarters today, and we saw their museum that's only restricted to like a certain group of people, and we were really like privileged to get to see that. So this morning we started off around 9 o'clock. We were hearing a talk from Khojaste Mistry. He was speaking on, Zoroastrianism, like what it is, what are our values, and a big Q&A. We can go back and forth because, everyone has their own opinions. And after Khojaste's talk, we went to the Rippon Club for a few hours. We heard a lecture on the Parsis and their diet over time and how our food has evolved. Like we have a lot of traditional dishes like dansak, Parsi faluda, like basanu. So we went in depth on how that Parsi culture has been influenced and how our dishes are what they are and how it's important to keep those. And educating youth from North America.
Yeah, really keeping those like cultural elements in mind and see how things change, how they transform, and how I think something very important that I learned through that talk was that we can't see things in like discrete patterns. Instead, it's a constant evolution, and I think nothing more than food is so representative of the way that things are transforming and developing over time. And there is no like fear or anxiety towards change. In fact, it is a necessary part of life. And I think one of the very important things that Mr. Dalal said was that it's no choice. Like it is in nature to have change, and it is through the ingredients and through so many other things, through the environment, through the cultural influences, that change has to come. And that's something like hopeful and inspiring that I heard and felt today. And I think, Fravash, you're forgetting to mention perhaps the most exciting part.
The actual food.
Yes, please.
We were served with the traditional dansak, salipar idu, and some, deep fried chicken?
Yeah.
Traditional, there's a word for it, I don't know what the Parsi dish is, and that was cooked in their kitchen, and that's a staple over there. Every Wednesday they have dansak, and they have all these activities they were speaking about, which was really nice. And then we went to the Ratan Tata headquarters. They have a building somewhere in Bombay, in Mumbai, and we had a nice tour of their museum. We got to see their impact that they've had on the community in Mumbai and around the world, and how much of a prestigious company it is. And that company is Ratan Tata. He's a Parsi, so it makes us really proud and inspires us to keep that entrepreneurship mindset. And it's kind of very common for Parsis to be entrepreneurs, so I hope some of the people abroad were inspired to even start their own business. So yeah, and then we wrapped up, and then we came to the hotel, and we have the evening off.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even being at the Bombay House, which is the headquarters of the Tata Institute, the Tata Trust, it was so fascinating that like we can see someone in our own community start from a very simple life and move towards and like discover and evolve through generations about these in different ways. And I think I noticed in myself as I was there, I started reflecting on how I was always very keen to like be pushing for things, be thinking about new ideas. And I think just visiting really inspired me to be confident enough to take the next step.
Yeah.
You're tuned in to Zoroverse.
Speaking of taking next steps, Fravash, I know from our conversations before that you are a very enthusiastic and inspiring businessman, and that you enjoy doing business, but not in the traditional like profit-driven sense, but more of a community, a nurturing and a kind of like giving back to the community and pushing for change sense. I know that you mentioned that you're working with your father on house renovation business.
Yes.
You also have your own spicy mayo Fravash sauce business, which sounds fantastic, and I'm really excited to try it. I will give a review towards the end of the podcast. One more, you mentioned that you're enthusiastic and you see potential in your sister Spenta's art business that you are, in a sense, a manager for, just casually as a family member. And you've taken that step as you move towards like settling down in Toronto and being inspired by the Congress before and wanting to create that kind of hype, that community-driven aspect of just being united and moving towards change. So I'd love to hear more about, first a bit about your own business and how that has inspired you in some sense, or has it, to move towards the Zoroastrian community in Ontario that you are now the chair of
the youth committee. Yeah, so how I see it is that there's opportunity everywhere, and it's just about looking for the opportunity. And most people miss it because there's a lot of risk involved in seizing the opportunities. So I'll start off with becoming the chair of the youth committee long time ago, actually, after the last youth congress in 2019, before the UK won. And it was really inspiring, and I became the chair. Now it's gonna be 4.5 years. So yeah, it's been a long time, and it showed me it taught me many new things. Like, for example, the actions you make every day, there's a ripple effect to them. And when you do something for 4.5 years, you can really see the ripple effects 4 years down the road. You know, a decision of me just randomly hopping in and seeing what we could do, what events we could have, it made such a big difference that I never expected. And this is something that I think the more random things people do, the more they realize that this is always going to be the case. A lot of new things come from taking risks. Like, the relationships that are built at our community center are so important. You know, I've seen like people migrate to Toronto, and they don't have anyone to look to for help or as a friend even. And they come to the center, and you know, my responsibility is to be their first friend. Introduce them to other people, make them feel welcome, and then they go on to be friends forever, you know, or at least for the last few years I've seen it. And hopefully those friendships do live on forever, and like, my job is done. And this is something that's like, not even just friendships, but even like job opportunities. There's so many doors that have been opened that I was so inspired. And this later turned into, after I graduated from university with my business degree, I understood this with my family too. You know, there was so much opportunity there, and instead of working for somebody else, I took the risk to like work for myself, work with my parents on the family business, and help my sister out in becoming a professional painter. You know, she's a professional painter, but like, to sell her paintings, it's a task, you know. And just for one person to do that, someone who's so artistically driven, the business side of things were really difficult. So, you know, we worked together, and that's what like it's all about, like working together. It's like, this is a proper thing that's studied in the business textbooks and economics. When people work together and do what they're good at, magic happens. you know. It's like 1 + 1 = 3 because we like work together, and that's seen in the community too. Like I might be good at the social events, but I'm not good at accounting. That's why we have our team. I have my good friend Sorab, who's a treasurer of our committee, and like Tashin, she really helps out in the cooking side of running our events. So having a community is really important. Like the leader is just one part of it, but like I love to be the leader, but having the good community around you, you can make like magic happen. That's what I've been doing for the last 4.5 years, and hopefully it continues to go on forever. Yeah.
That's amazing. That is so fascinating to hear. And I completely agree. I think it's in community and in moving together as a team that magic really happens. And I think I've seen it, like as I like spent my childhood in Karachi, I saw a lot of people moving towards Canada. And I realized that, you know, I might not ever be able to see them again because I'm going to be a few 1,000 miles away. Yeah. But just reuniting in London and seeing people who were part of the Karachi community in one time, and we really did grow up together. It was just fascinating to see how they found their own passions, they found their own niches, and it's just amazing. So tell me more about like working within the community, how like each member of the community plays perhaps a special role. Is that something that you see happening? And maybe a little bit more about the magic that happens, because I'm so curious to hear about that.
Yeah, so the magic just happens on its own, and you don't know when it's going to happen or how it's going to happen, but the community, we don't think in terms of profit. In money-wise, we think of just working together, and everyone wants the community to win. So it's like we're all working towards the same goal, which is improving the community. So the main thing is, as long as everyone knows that that's the case, it's always a win-win. And the secret was just to bring as many people out to events as possible. And in that way, those connections are built and so many ideas come to fruition. So people have a lot of ideas, people have a lot of complaints about what they can do better, but it's the gap between the ideas and the execution. And if we can shorten that gap, you can do so much. You can do so many things. Like, for example, in 1 year, our ZSO youth, we came together with a goal of raising $40,000, and we ended up reaching that goal, and we helped subsidize 35 youth to go to the Congress with that money. So we gave each person approximately $1,000 each. And that way, that was the effort of the community. We all came together, and now since we're back from the Congress, we're gonna help the community again and see like where can we give back now, because they gave us so much, and they just gave it without wanting anything in return. But we're gonna obviously give back wherever we can. So we continue like hosting events, and I'm already seeing more and more things happen. You know, like, we don't know, more people want to join the youth committee, so we're changing things up, and we're going to see way more leaders in our community in that way, and we'll see more magic, you know, more ideas come about. Like one time, we were just chatting in the group chat, and someone gave an idea who rarely contributes, but they were like, let's do a Pachrano dinner, you know, just randomly. And they felt like there was an open environment, which is really important, of like ideas, random ideas. And at first it sounded so crazy, but we were like, what's really stopping us from doing a Pachrano dinner? Yeah. And we were like, let's do it as a fundraiser, Pachrano dinner in Toronto, authentic. We found one chef, Kersi Kambata, who's really specialized in this food, and we made it happen. We did a full fundraiser, $80 a ticket, and it was one of our most successful fundraisers, and people had a really good time when they were at the Pachrano dinner. Yeah. Like, it was, we didn't know how we were going to execute it, but we just said, let's do it, let's find a date, and let's execute, and that was one of the best decisions, you know? Wow. Like, everyone came together. We had a trolley, and people were, like, serving it on the Patras, just like the wedding. It was, like, we didn't even expect it to be that good, but when everyone came together, it just, like, that's an example of like something so magical that just came about, you know.
Fascinating. And by patra, you mean banana leaf like we used to have in the gumbars?
Yeah.
We do have in the gumbars.
Yeah, there was one other guy on the committee who knew exactly where to get the full-on like patras. Yeah.
Okay.
Which was, we didn't expect that, but we were just like, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yes, I have seen a lot of engagement with the community on your Instagram as well, because I follow your team since the Congress, and I've seen like some dances, some dinners, some other fundraisers happening, and it's just been fascinating to be able to engage from such a long distance. And I'm curious about what advice you have for other community leaders, people who are watching this and are part of their Zoroastrian community, or any community for that matter. What do you think is like the key takeaway that you would give in terms of a specific event or a kind of thing that really seems to bring people together every time from your own experience?
So one main piece of advice I would give people is asking the question of what's really the problem. So that question is a question that at least I and our committee is really like asking. What is really the problem and how can we solve it? You know, is the problem that people are not coming to the events? No, the real problem is that people come to events and they don't have a good time and then they don't come again. So that there's many different problems that arise, and asking yourself what is really the problem and how can we solve it, we've always found the answer. You know?
Brilliant.
Like not raising enough money, what is really the problem? Like, are we fundraising in the wrong way? Are we not calling up others? And another thing is be really humble. You know, understand where you can ask for advice. You know, almost like, so if you're a youth leader or you're just a leader in general in your own community, wherever that is, you will not be perfect, and no one is. But there's people around you who can help you solve your problems. Because in general, there's only so many problems, and most of the problems that you'll face, someone else has already faced that problem. So asking for advice is really important, and being like, hey, I have this idea and I want to execute it. Can you help me on this journey? And that's it. And just make sure you're in constant communication with, you know, the people who are on your team. If you're feeling anything like bad, just make sure you let them know. Make sure everything is out in the open, and that way that even takes away, like, one major problem that people have said is like their politics and their association. There's only so much advice I can give there, but ideally it's like, what is really the problem and can you solve it? Like, do you have the courage to stand up to your elders and challenge them on their views? And in that way, usually there's not that much resistance. At least at the ZSO, I've noticed. I can't speak for other communities, but I'm sure the board of directors, they don't have anything against you, you know.
Right.
Or there's always something that they'll explain, and the youth need to just respond in the way they feel. Like, if they want to raise money for a certain cause, the board will help. If they can't give money, they'll help execute events, or they'll help, you know, give you a list of sponsors they can call up. Or because most of the problems I've noticed is a money problem. They don't have enough money for certain things, and those problems can be solved. Like, for example, calling up sponsors. If you don't know who to call, there are booklets of, like, for example, in the New York Congress that you guys went to, everyone got a booklet of the sponsors.
Right.
Just use that booklet and call up every single sponsor in that booklet, and like, you can perhaps like make up something to give them value, being like, if you sponsor us, if you give us $100 or if you give us $500, we'll put you on the pamphlet. And something so simple can help you raise so much money. And just make sure if you're asking for money, to have a good cause. If you believe in the cause, and if you really explain to them, hey, I would like, I'm going to like fundraising now, because that's the main problem I've noticed people have, especially the youth, because they're not educated on fundraising. Even I'm not educated. I've gone on the phone so many times and had like not the best conversations, but I've still, because the cause was so important, I still figured out how to raise the funds. You know, like, you might not be perfect at cold calling people, but like, nobody is. Like, at least in the beginning, like, I wasn't for sure. You have to wear so many different caps, and even if you do everything imperfectly, at least you're doing something, because most people are doing zero. So if people have the mindset of doing amazing things, but it all starts off with doing very, very small things, messing up, learning from your mistakes, as long as you're not doing it clumsy. One main advice would be, I tell this to everyone in every field, stick to your word. If you give your word, make sure you stick to it, and if you can't stick to your word, make sure you communicate that as early as possible. I'll get this to you by Friday, and for some reason you get busy and you can't get it to them by Friday, just text them, be like, hey, I'll get it to you by Sunday. So sorry. Even if you can't, but ideally stick to your word.
Yeah.
And people respect people who can keep their word. Yeah.
Fascinating advice, Fravash. And I'm actually so impressed and so glad you brought this topic up for two reasons. The first is because as someone who has just started studying the Gathas for my own dissertation, one of the verses in the Gathas which said that each person should listen to the best teachings of others, but always remember to make their own decision. And the way that we make the best decision is by asking the right questions. Wow. And I think you really, I don't know if you've done it consciously or subconsciously or just being as a part of the community or being raised in this amazing way, to know that it is through asking the right questions that we almost it's kind of like this piercing light that illuminates this darkness or confusion that we might have. And I think asking questions does this miraculous thing of being able to, as I said, shed light on or move away the discrepancy from what we're trying to see and really understand what the problem is. That was the first thing that I was fascinated by. And the second was that you have set us up very, very well to move into the second segment of our podcast for today. And that is a quick question and answer session.
You're tuned in to Zoroverse.
The idea and the theme behind this is that I have 72 questions based on very different topics and perhaps covering things from personal life to Zoroastrian philosophy, Zoroastrian psychology, how we communicate and interact with other religions, how your lived experience is with working with the community, without the community, and how you have just embraced these tenets in your own professional and personal life. So with 72 chapters of the Yasna, I have 72 questions. And Fravash, pick a number between 1 and 72. I will pull out my list of questions and I will ask you the question that is on the page.
Thank you, Meherwan. I'm going to pick 17 because I was born December 17th.
17. All right. This is a good question. Yeah. So 17 is part of a few short answer questions. 15 to 19 are the short answer questions. And 17 is, in 3 sentences, describe the primary message of Zarathustra.
Thank you. I would say to acquire as much as knowledge as possible, ensure that you yourself are happy in everything, and then give back to the community as much as you can without expecting anything in return. Thank you.
That was a wonderful 3-sentence summary. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
Second number.
I'm gonna pick 12.
12. Okay, close by. This is a question about, I think, well, you can say it's about personal relationships and personal stories about Zoroastrianism. Sure. Number 12 in particular is, how do you summarize Zoroastrianism to your friends and colleagues? So kind of like a similar question, but more like non-community members perhaps facing.
Yeah, so I honestly just summarize in a very surface level thing, because usually people are not extremely interested, so I don't want to bore them. But I just tell them it's a religion from ancient Iran. It's like one of the first religions to ever come about, and that the community is still there, that Zoroastrians are still alive, very much in India, in Iran, and especially in Toronto. There's a really big population. I always bring that up, and I tell them that I'm involved in the community. I've been involved since I was young, and yeah, I'm kind of prideful of being Zoroastrian. I really enjoy telling people that, because to people who know it, it's even better because they're amazed by like how rare it is to actually meet a Zoroastrian. So even if it's like my Uber driver one time, he's like, oh my God, you are a Parsi? I was like, yeah. And my friend was in the car and he was like, what the hell? I didn't know it was like at that level because he only knows me. Right. But my Uber driver was like, oh, you are a Parsi? Very nice. Like he was really like, he was from India. And like those kind of times, like they give me a lot of like joy. So very simply, I tell them that like we are very like few of us now, and if they ask for more, I can tell them more.
Wonderful, got it. Yeah, I think we both. I enjoy it as well. I enjoy like speaking to people about it, and it adds like a bit of tinge and character to my personality socially, and I think like ethically and morally, it also like gives you a very strong foundation.
Yes.
Yeah, let's have maybe one or two more numbers.
Last one is 55.
55.
Yes.
Ooh, this is an interesting one. This is on global challenges, not only community related, but all over the world. 55 is, how does being a Zoroastrian fit into your other social and personal identities?
Okay, that's a really good question. I would say there's some values that we've grown up as, and we don't even understand that it was so valuable until you go out and you really notice it very, like, it's very prominent. For example, following the path of Asha, the path of truth, it means you don't lie. You don't do things for selfish gain and like lie to others. Like, I would be at work and I would never lie. I would never like even make like rude comments here and there just for fun, which is very common, especially in like where I used to work in like downtown Toronto with like these extremely masculine like guys in like operations and maintenance. And my worker looked at me, he's like, I don't know why you're so like this, you know? Is it because like your religion? Is it because of your family? And I said, I just like, it's probably because of my religion. The values we've been taught is don't lie, which is like one major value. There's many. I'm not going to name all of them. He's like, don't lie. And when you don't lie to others, you're not lying to yourself also. So you're very like true to yourself. You're very like all the decisions you've made it. All the decisions you've made them without, like, you're not scared. Basically, like a lie is gonna come back to you. Yeah, because you're always doing the right thing. You're doing what you think is right.
Right.
And people see it, you know, and being kind to others, you know, not living like a very selfish life, that comes back to you in many ways. You know, doing selfish acts of kindness, thinking about other people. Those things are values that we were all grown up with as Zoroastrians.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for these insights, Fravash, and it was so awesome to have you as our first guest. So thank you so much for being on board today, and it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, Meherwan. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. Keep it up and keep watching the podcast. You know, there's gonna be really like interesting speakers. I'm sure Meherwan will get on board, and yeah, you know, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're tuned in to Zoroverse.